right, everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate all the puns in the chat for this is how we do it. I am just going to be the eyes and ears for this webinar, and I'm going to pass it over to our lovely hosts and panelists from AmericanEagle.com. This webinar is all about SEO and all things that have changed within really the last couple of months, but really the last year. It's been roughly a year since we've done an SEO webinar, and I know it has been a very busy year at that for SEO. So we are very excited to see you this morning, this afternoon, this evening, or if you're watching it on demand. Again, my name is Lexi, and we are recording this. If you have to hop off or you are unable to watch all of it, we will post this to our YouTube and share out the recording after the webinar. I do just want to remind everybody that we have some lovely panelists and hosts here that can answer some questions live at the end of the webinar. So as we're going, please feel free to drop any questions into the chat, or you can also drop questions into the question and answer feature in your Zoom toolbar. That just helps us keep track of things and take those questions at the end. But yes, what is our agenda for today on this SEO webinar? We're going to go through an overview and introductions, and then we're going to pass to our American Eagle team to review kind of what has happened in the last couple of months with the SEO algorithm, talk about how it has impacted rankings, visibilities, and your website, and then talk about strategies to move forward and how you can kind of make some actionable actions on your own website. And I want to just set the stage really quick before we get started. Why are we here? Why do we have these two panelists from American Eagle? And why are we talking about SEO with them? We know that this is an ever popular topic for WordPress. While WordPress isn't an SEO platform, SEO is directly impacting your site, and American Eagle is one of our strategic partners, and they have over 650 WordPress projects. They are well seasoned in the WordPress world and outside of the WordPress world. So we got together and said, hey, what's a topic we want to talk on, and we can bring y'all in and really let you hone in on being the experts. So thank you to American Eagle for the great partnership, and we're really excited to just talk about what has happened over the last couple of years. And with that, I'm going to disappear, and I'm going to pass this over to Erin Myers-Vidal, who is our lead digital strategy manager here at WP Engine, and she is going to host this discussion. Erin, I'm passing it to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lexi. Can you hear me okay? Cool. Gotta ask. Hi, everyone, and thanks for being here today. I'm Erin Vidal, and I'm from WP Engine, where I lead organic marketing strategy. My background was in journalism until I made the pivot to marketing. And now I've spent a lot of time over the last decade working on content marketing and SEO optimization strategies for growth stage tech companies like Main Street Hub, which was acquired by GoDaddy, and Rev.com. I've always been in-house, and today I have a great panel of experts here with me to discuss not one, but two algorithm updates that Google has rolled out in the last month. So we will review the 2024 core algorithm changes, what's happened so far. We'll be discussing the impact on rankings and reviewing strategies for adapting to those changes for the websites and properties that you manage. And then I will do my best to leave some time at the end for any questions from the audience. Matt and Kurt, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure.
You go first, Kurt.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. My name's Kurt Hoffman. I work on the agency side my whole career. I've been doing this for about 16 years, working in digital marketing and website creation and design. Looking forward to talking to everyone today. Really happy to kind of represent AmericanEagle.com in this discussion, and then go through this with Matt, which is a close teammate of mine.
Yeah, so that leads to me. I'm Matt Kirtley. I'm one of the senior SEO strategists here at AmericanEagle.com. I've been doing SEO for about 20 years. It's actually one of my first jobs out of high school, was starting in digital marketing and SEO back when we were called webmasters. And since then, I've worked kind of every level of digital marketing, small to large enterprise. And here I work a day-to-day on lots of, especially large accounts, but also just the other day I was working with a little seller in does handbags. They're building up their digital marketing efforts. And then later in the day, I was working on an e-commerce site with 150,000 products. So a lot of variety of SEO work goes on here.
Awesome. Webmasters, that's a throwback. That was even a little before my time. I never got the pleasure of calling myself a webmaster, but I might add that to my LinkedIn.
I'm a certified internet webmaster, a master of the web.
This is your domain. Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kurt. So we've got Google's March core algorithm update, which is really all the buzz right now. We also have Google's spam update, and these have been rolling out over the last few weeks. Matt, Kurt, I think you put together a really nice timeline for us today. So from your perspective, are there any common threads behind Google's core updates over the years?
Yeah, let me get to that slide for you here. So I wanted to frame this as a look at how Google has evolved over time, because anything we see now is going to be an extension of what they have been doing. So I know that over the years, they have evolved search, and they will eventually roll in a specific update to just be part of the core search algorithm. So not to get into every single one of them, but if you read through these and you watch this on the recording, you'll see that there's an evolution towards how do we pull out quality content, how do we fight spam, and eventually like they'll do a hard hit that comes in and surprises everyone. And then that just normalizes and becomes part of the core. So you've heard of Panda and Penguin if you've been around in SEO for a while. And then later, the AIs that I think of for Google the most are actually not these current ones that everyone's talking about, but it's these ones that came in the last, say, 5 years, which are like the Bert and the Mum updates, where it's how Google's AI understands your content. So we're seeing a much bigger emphasis on understanding the user intent, of figuring out which content to show people. And in the last year, and this is what we're going to see in this year too, is the helpful content update, where they are emphasizing the quality of the content and trying to pair it to the right person at the right time. And to get into what we saw last year, because I think this will set the stage for this year, is you get about a quarterly core update, and Google will consider that they're just updating their core algorithms. But mixed into there, we see things like updates that are focused on reviews, so how user reviews are on sites. They'll fight spam with certain updates. They had one they specifically called out as the helpful content update. And then sometimes they just literally fix bugs. There was a period where they had some ranking problems that they admitted were just a problem, and they fixed it. To speak to this year in particular, we didn't get an official update until March, but then they announced it on the 5th that they were going to do a core update. And this takes a while to roll out, because when they do it, there will be certain systems affected first, and then it goes to the next system and the next system, because Google isn't just one algorithm, like people say the algorithm, but really it's so many systems, so many algorithms. And it took about a month to roll out the update. And then they also started rolling out a spam update. And there's other little things that they don't even call updates that are happening in this time.
Yeah, Matt, I know the update has been rolling out over the last few weeks. Is it complete? Are we still seeing the dust settle from the March core algorithm update? Like, what are you hearing
Google
from?
says it's done. Google says like, their systems are done updating, but you are still seeing rank changes.
Yeah.
Because there's this sort of butterfly effect of when one system changes, another system will change. And so there isn't a single thing that changed. It's just like all the ranking factors, all of them become rebalanced. And so you're going to see Google raising and lowering things. And there's often this period of volatility following an update where a site will do poorly and then well again and poorly. And it's not that there's any particular problem with that one site that's jumping up and down. It's that there's so much reevaluation happening that you have to wait for Google to finish. And if it ever really finishes, you have to wait for it to settle a bit to see. And this is why you get that frustrating answer sometimes where Google will say, if you're affected by these core updates, if you're ranking as well, maybe don't do anything, because there might be nothing wrong with your site, but we are just evaluating things differently, which is cold comfort if your site suddenly lost a bunch of traffic. But it what they mean is we have new websites to rank, and maybe you just don't rank as well as you used to. So there might not be a technical problem with your site, but you have to think about what would you do to your site to keep it relevant to its users, make sure you don't really have any technical problems that are blocking it from being crawled, but you're probably not getting penalized in that sense, like Google, unless you're posting spam, you're not getting penalized, but Google has to reweigh how it ranks sites. Does that get to what you're asking about?
Yeah, definitely. It looks like you might. Do you have something to add there, Kurt? I
Hey
see
man,
you.
yeah, I was going to layer in another aspect of that besides just an algorithm update is the search engine result page layout, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the presentation today. But that is a constant evolution as well,
Mhm.
which affects traffic, right? It affects rank and it affects where the layout happens. Ads and other aspects to that result page is going to impact overall traffic. So sometimes it might not even be like a core key where you rank. It might be that search engine result page is evolving. So there's multiple things that you kind of have to pay attention to and look at when you're doing research as an SEO.
Yeah, yeah, definitely true. And going back to the timeline and are the core algorithm updates complete? One of my least favorite things to tell executives at WP Engine is, okay, the update is complete. However, we have to wait a month, sometimes 90 days to see how it's truly going to impact our website. Um, and so I know that that is something that a lot of us are telling our stakeholders, kind of
Yeah.
holding on to our seats, waiting to see where the dust will settle.
Yeah, that's something you have to watch out for because it might be scary at first. You see your rankings changing, you see your traffic fluctuating. So you might jump on something and edit it, change a part of your site, but then a month later that reverses. And so you don't want to jump the gun and then do a bunch of effort that wasn't needed if you just need to see how it plays out. And this is true of any big change to your site or SEO in general. You don't want to overreact. Uh, you because you could overreact and then it just backfires in the end. So it's frustrating for people who want to see immediate results, but you got to see about a month, maybe longer, how it's going to play out.
Yeah, no such thing as immediate results when you're dealing with organic.
If you want immediate results, you got to pay for those.
Yep. Something I thought was interesting this time around is, historically, Google has done these updates kind of masked under what they've called the core update, and they've used that as a catch-all. But I've been curious and wondering about the spam component and the way that they announced it to not only the SEO community, but just the greater web community. It seemed to me like they were trying to create clear policies around what they consider spam and what kind of behaviors and activities websites should not be doing in order to drive organic traffic. What do you think? Like, why did they do two separate rollouts here, breaking the spam out from the core update? I'm just really curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I think it's partly just in terms of how their systems work. I think there's a core system and a spam fighting system. So in a technical sense, they just have to have two updates. But the other part is they're having to figure out what they're going to do with AI. They can't just say don't use AI because everyone will. And Google is offering AI solutions for things too. So they're going to have to ingest AI content that their own system has created. So they had to be careful about saying it's not AI we're against, it's scaled content. It's low quality scaled content. Because they said if you made a bunch of humans do this and it was bad, we wouldn't want it either. It's not the AI that's the problem. It's that AI makes it really easy to regurgitate sites that have no value or steal a bunch of content and then scrape it and then reword it enough that it's not an exact duplicate, but it's not providing any real value that we couldn't have gotten from the original source. So to me, it's like Google is having to walk this line of, well, AI is not going away, and we even are encouraging it, but I think they're seeing some of the worst spam they've seen in a long time because AI makes it so easy to just dump out a million pages and try to just get affiliate links and AdSense dollars. And these really low level junky websites are really flooding the internet. So they needed a second update to just try to address that.
That makes a lot of sense. I think we're all grappling with AI and how it fits into our marketing strategy, our website strategy. But on the flip side, we have Google responding to the massive content that's been churned
Yeah,
out
it's just
in the last year.
it's so easy to generate too much content with no value,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what Google's trying to fight. So if you look here, we got the slide up for my predictions. This is just my hot takes, really.
Yeah, let's
So
hear it.
that top one is, I think you're going to get rewarded for authoritative content that's hard to fake, because there was recently they have those guidelines they write where we get the phrase EAT, the term EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. They
Yep.
added another E of experience, because they want
EAT is the
E,
acronym now.
yeah, two E's, extra long E at the front. So they're not giving specifics on how that works, but they are saying we want to see experience with things. We want to, and I think what that means is they want to see real world knowledge, firsthand experience, things that AI can't do. AI doesn't physically handle objects. It can't review products. It can only take other reviews and regurgitate them or fabricate new similar
Right.
reviews
Kind of
with some
piece them
prompting.
together
Yeah,
into something new, but not really, because it's recycling what's already on the web, right?
yeah. So they want to emphasize real experiences. So I think that's why we get things like the reviews updates tie into this, because they want to see firsthand experiences, things that an AI couldn't know. And I mean, AI doesn't really know anything. If you look into how these models work, they are for generating text that tricks humans into thinking it knows things, but it doesn't really know things. We're moving towards more specialized AIs that could do that, but right now it's very easy to get wrong information out of AI, and AI has no idea that it's wrong. So it's gonna want more personalized, authentic content if possible, and they're trying to figure out how do we distinguish this, how do we even tell the difference if AI is getting better at faking it. And then one we're going to get to in a second is, I think that Google is just going to continue down its path of very personalized search results, where it's not just these 10 blue links we used to get in the past. It's very unique experiences for each search and for each user, where Google wants to figure out, like, the algorithm before it even ranks the content is, what kind of search result do I even show this person? If you're looking for flights, you're going to get a very special airline flight focused one that has flights built right in. But if you're looking for a local business versus e-commerce versus all these other things, there's a different search experience now. And so you could rank number one in the old sense and still be 2 pages down, because there's so many other search features at the top of the search results. I'm going to move ahead here in these slides.
Yeah. I did have one other question for you too. So I think, I believe that core updates are probably here to stay, in the sense that they're still focusing it on the core ethos of improving user experience across search results. And I think it's important to emphasize the improving user experience piece, with personalization, with results that are relevant. With the latest one, I'm curious, Kurt, Matt, have there been specific industries or sites that you've noticed being impacted the most?
I can speak to that. The ones where the trustworthiness of the site matters the most. So it's like the Your Money, Your Life sites I've seen the biggest changes in. Ones that have medical information, ones that have investing or very big financial decision information, they are scrutinizing the hardest. So I've seen where, if you're going to have that kind of content on your site, you're being rewarded if you can prove you have that experience and that expertise by demonstrating, like, who your authors are, what their credentials are. We're going to talk about the idea of the knowledge graph, the knowledge panel. So Google, beyond just keywords, is building out an understanding of all the things on the internet and in the world, and it's relating those to each other. So if you have content about something timely or that could affect people, like in the news, they want to know who's the author, what else have they written, what's their expertise, what schools did they go to. I was working on the site the other day for it was a medical facility. They have specialists who do different surgeries, and they have a lot of content, educational content on their site. So where we saw the benefit, like where we were able to help them with their rankings, was we made sure we had editorial policies that were on the site explaining the medical reviews that were done, that the content was reviewed by the doctors. We had author pages for the doctors that built out who they are, where they went to school, what certifications they have. We did the schema for those doctors so that Google has that data also in that format that more directly feeds into the knowledge graph. So it helped to build out a more complete picture of why they can talk about this. Why should Google listen to them? Are they not and prove that it wasn't just a bot that scripted a bunch of WebMD articles and republished them. It was original content written by doctors and reviewed by the medical staff.
Yeah, original content by a credible source. So building the credibility into the structure of an article, I think, is kind of what you're describing.
So the way it was written showed firsthand experience, the doctor talking about how how they've treated people, and then also in the authorship, in the bios, in the links to the author bios, the Google being able to connect those dots. Some of the doctors having Wikipedia pages, making sure that those are up to date and accurate, because Google's connecting these things together to understand who this doctor is as an entity, what fields they work in, and why content about that written by them should be given more credence than others.
And a footnote, not generated by AI.
Yeah.
There you go. Just put that there, and Google will trust it.
The irony of this all is that from a sales perspective, and I work on the sales side of our organization. Real stories and real experience is what people gravitate towards, right? It's not the bullet points of how we do things from a process perspective. And I think Google is looking at that the same way, that they want to map out real experience, real knowledge to the end user. Because Aaron, as you mentioned earlier, it really is about the user experience. That's why people keep coming back to Google for research and to find businesses and companies. And the companies that can tell their stories in real world scenarios and real life scenarios the best, just as you would from selling your product set. Those are the ones that are going to resonate, and those are the ones that they know aren't spammy and aren't AI generated and those things. And they tend to rank and they tend to do better. We'll show examples of kind of the change that we're seeing a little later, but I think that's very, very relevant when you're starting to think about what do I do from a content perspective? How do I do it? Make it real, make it real world, make it real life, and make it knowledgeable to your industry, and it'll win.
Great advice. Yeah. Lean into what you're an expert on, and produce content about that topic.
Yeah. What do people ask you about? What do you constantly get questions about? What are your folks constantly talking to clients and customers and potential people about? Whether you're an association or whether you're an e-commerce company or something along those lines, those should always steer your thought process, because it's real. It's what people are really trying to research and find out and get answered. And that isn't generated content. That's real content.
I love that, Kurt. That's something that our content team at WP Engine does spend a good bit of time reviewing, what are people chatting into our website? What questions do they have? And then I don't know, this seems like a no-brainer to me, but if you haven't, talk to your sales team, talk to your customer support team. What do they answer on a daily basis? That's probably another really good place to start.
Yeah. Besides that, I think Google will give you guys suggestions now also, depending upon your industry and what you do. And we have a wide variety of people on this. When you do a search for something, Google more often than not now is saying people also looked for this, right? It's the Amazon shopping of experience. If you bought this, you might buy this, you might buy this, you might buy this. It's the same thing within search, as when you're doing a search, Google will say people also looked for this. No longer do you have to go up and erase what you typed in and rethink about what you were, trying to find. You can go through their recommendations. Those ideas are good ideas to be able to say, okay, now I know what other people are looking for and searching for within my industry. I need to start thinking about how to answer those questions. Kind of call it suggested search, whatever it is, but it's a great strategy when you're thinking about like, okay, what do I put together? How should we think about this? It's been very beneficial on the agency side to helping our clients be able to rank for more things than just maybe core individual keywords.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get into talking about a few of these things too. Kurt brought that up, the idea of using Google to do your own research on what people are looking for. So I'm going to run through a couple slides here, and I think that will set the stage. This one here is to talk about how is Google generating a search result these days. And this I had in here because people say the algorithm, like there's a single step, like Google just has this one algorithm. And in Google's word, there's at least 5 steps and really way more than that of how they're going to generate a result. And on the left here, you'll see the 5 summarized, and they're trying to figure out what's the meaning of the search. Do they have relevant content for that? Is that content good? Is it quality content? There's some technical things around the usability of the site. If it doesn't load well on mobile, then it probably won't get shown very well to mobile users. And then this last one I think is pretty interesting. It's the context and other settings for the user themselves. So if you're on your phone and it's a certain time of day and you're staying in a certain place, you will get different search results for certain things than if you're on your desktop at another time of day in a different place, because Google is trying to localize it to you, personalize it to you. And each one of those steps can totally change what the end result is. So you could have #1 rankings for one user in one place and no rankings for another user in another place. And you have to understand if you fall into that category of search where it's very personalized and you're going to see everyone getting a different experience. And part of that now to me is like, you can't just think of it as like, well, I have this one blog post, therefore I have SEO. You have to think, what is Google going to pull from to populate the search result? So if you don't have videos, if you don't have ads, if you don't have a Google business profile, or those aren't optimized, and that's the kind of content Google wants to show, then you're not going to be shown. So if you need these things across the different platforms, and understanding, is the user, the end user who you're trying to reach, going to be looking at images, looking at videos, looking for questions? And if you have content that can match them there, then you can optimize it and get the rankings, hopefully. But if you don't even have the content, if you're not on the platform, then what's your hope of ranking? So expanding, I know my specialty is organic SEO, so the 10 blue links was my job for a long time, but so many other things are part of search now that I don't just think of SEO as the keywords I want to rank for. It's how much of that page, how many of those searches benefit me or my client, because it might be third-party websites that rank, and there's no hope of you ever ranking for this one search term. But could you get those sites to review you? Could you reach out to them and have a connection with the sites that do rank, so that if you're never going to get that top spot because Google prefers a aggregator site like a Yelp or a reviewer, do you have favorable reviews? So having to expand your thinking beyond one site, one page, one keyword to the whole search experience.
Yeah. Aaron, I was just going to add in, I think this is a big takeaway that people can kind of focus on. It doesn't happen in a day, right? It takes time, energy, effort. I think you need to be strategic about where you put your time and energy and effort, depending upon your industry, your site, your business, your intentions, what you're trying to accomplish. But if you can play across all of these platforms, you're going to have a better odds of being able to grab some of that kind of important real estate in the shopping cycle or in the research cycle. So doing this is something that we kind of pride ourselves on and help clients with a lot. And it tends to be very beneficial. It just takes time, energy, and effort. That's the key, is prioritizing what you do to what's going to be most impactful at first. And then gradually going through the process of being able to be found in all of these areas and optimized properly in all these areas, besides just having a presence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when previously I've worked with local businesses, and when you show them a list like this, it can look daunting.
Yeah.
But kindly remind the business owner, because search is becoming more personalized, you do need to take the time to claim your Google business profile. Maybe even consider replying when you're getting a review, to show other people who are looking at your site that you're managing your YouTube, you're managing your reviews, you're managing your things beyond your website. Um, yeah, and then I mean, this is not even, I won't delve into claiming your Yelp profile, claiming your TripAdvisor profile, but like there are all these instances where if you're not showing up, you can probably bet that your competitors are. And that's why it's worth it to take the time to go through and fill these out with up-to-date phone numbers and URLs and all of the things that, you're kind of hinting at here, Matt and Kurt.
Yeah, and to your point about how it can seem so daunting to do all this, what we do it in a phased approach. So there's the way our team works is we'll say take on a new client, they have a mess of, like they don't have their listings claimed, they had multiple names for their company over the years, or they changed their domain at some point. And so all these listings out there in the world are inaccurate or out of date. Is, go in and claim those core ones first, make sure you got your Google business profile, probably your social media accounts too, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, ID, most likely, and just make sure those are all right and correct. And then next round, we'll go through and check, Yelp and these other things. Not that you necessarily have to invest a ton in, like someone in the comments was like, I hate Yelp. Okay, you don't have, but the trouble is Yelp will talk about you. Yelp will have a link to you or it will mention your business. So even if you don't like Yelp, you want to make sure you own your presence there, because getting back to the idea of the knowledge graph, Google is building its understanding of you through these other sites too. So if it sees you a lot of backlinks to you from these sites, it talks about what you do. Google's grabbing reviews off of those sites to understand you. So even if you don't intend to fully support all these different websites in your efforts, you should at least claim your listings, make sure they're accurate, and then focus in on the ones you have the time and budget for.
Yeah. I've noticed too that Google seems to be reshaping this SERP back to some of the more prominent previously visible websites with user generated content like Twitter, now X,
Oh yeah.
YouTube, Reddit, I've noticed is rising in the search results. So
I'm going to call that out in a minute here. Well, you'll see too. I've been doing a little safari of all the different stuff you can find in the search results these days. This is one's for Kurt though. I want Kurt to talk about this. We were talking about using Google to do your own competitor analysis.
Yeah. Aaron, to your point, that's a great point. That's something we'll kind of highlight the changes within the search engine results page a little bit later. And Google's always going to popular ads, right? That's where their revenue comes from. So we'll discuss kind of how to combat that. I'm not sure if anyone on the webinar has been using Google as a tool to do competitive analysis, but it's a great way to research how Google is ranking competitors and how and who Google thinks is your guys' competitors as far as from a search perspective. So I think what we come across all the time is these companies that are long established, really well run, very successful companies, but they maybe aren't recognized that way from a search perspective, and they think it's kind of unfair. And the new guy on the town or someone that has done something via search better is ranking better, even though they're not as an established business. Within Google, you can do some of the research to see like, okay, who do they think is relevant? Who do you compete against? Who do they consider you to compete against? Then you can do some competitive analysis as far as, okay, what are they doing within their marketing? What are they doing within their site architecture, title tags, meta descriptions, content, layout, linking, those types of things. So there are ways that you can use search to be able to say, all right, who's relevant? Maybe not who I think I compete against, but who Google thinks thinks I compete against? And then how do I combat that? Or how do I kind of plan a strategy to be able to compete against those folks? So, Matt, any other, additional comments on that?
Yeah, I was just talking to a client the other day where they've been in their industry for decades, longer than I've been alive, since probably the 50s. But given that they're been around so long, they kind of are in an old school industry. They didn't really think about the web being that important for them. And so they didn't invest in their web development. Their website was sort of just a little brochure. And now they see other companies that really don't have as much of a reputation in the general world in their industry, ranking for all the terms they wish they ranked for and getting all the traffic online that they wish they had, because they're like, well, we used to just be able to, word of mouth, people would come knock on our door. We could just send a sales rep into people's offices and they would get a sale. And that's not how the world's running anymore. And what do we do? Like, there's all these other little companies that don't have the authority we have. And it's, well, Google can only see what it can see. Google doesn't get your business cards when you leave them, at a trade show. So you need a web presence that reflects that experience you have in your industry. And that will just take time to build up. You need a better website. You need to claim all those business listings. You need to build out Google's understanding of who you are and what you do. And that's going to take some time, but also creating some content, ongoing efforts. And it can frustrate people because, like, well, we did all that in the old world. We did all that on paper. We ran we did it for decades before Google, and now suddenly we're nobody on the internet. And it's frustrating, but you just gotta tackle it now.
Yeah, your website is truly the front door of your business. And you should probably assume that the majority of people who come into your brick and mortar are going to look you up first and see what people have to say, see what your web presence looks like. Are you even still open?
Yeah, I do the same thing. I got this in here to show how different searches these days. This is our little Safari. I went through and anytime I see a new search feature, I screenshot it. And so, like, I have way too many to show here, but if you look at this is like in my brain, this is what Google search looks like on the left. It's a bunch of blue links. It's got some meta descriptions underneath, and it doesn't really look like that anymore. It might be a little hard to see here, but on the right, what we get is the same search today. It's got a grid of products with thumbnails. We got a people also ask. Above that, we have Google trying to suggest additional ways to modify my search. So it's not just taking my word for it. It wants to steer me towards a specific search intent. And then we see Amazon.com, but we also see a smaller business right underneath them. And then on the right side here, this is further down from the same search result. This is something new people also buy from, where Google is just picking out certain brands and it's connecting it. So the search here is for air fresheners for your car. It's picking out brands and saying these are other brands people buy from. And then even below that is an explore brands section. So what I've been seeing is a lot of Google moving towards trying to understand how brands, what a brand does and what it sells, and connecting it to its products and its industries. So you're being shown for things where there isn't even a specific, again here, Bed Bath & Beyond, it's not a specific page of their site that's even ranking. It's just Google knowing they sell these things and they're connected to that concept in Google. So they're pulling them out into a special search result to show that. Yeah, and I saw in the comments someone pointing out that Google's just like really showing your competition right next to your search results. And yep, I'm seeing that too. If you look up a business, you typically get Google showing you that business, and then people also search for it in other businesses. If you are in the search bar and you start typing in a brand, it will pop down with the autocomplete and have similar brands next to it. So they're really trying to understand the brands and also how they compete against each other.
Yeah. Jen Bodecker said, which is great from a user perspective. So true, John.
That's exactly right.
So true.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. You can't take it personally. You just have to play the game, right? The aspect that they're ultimately intending to do is to get people to come back to use search, right? To use their search engine. So they'd rather focus on the end user and their intent, and they get to learn more and more about how you search and whether you click through shopping ads or whether you gravitate towards organic. All of that is going to alter the results, and what they care about is really user experience to an extent. They care about ads too, but user experience is really what it's about.
We got this slide in here because it comes up a lot. Kurt and I see clients all the time who want to know how to get this. This is sort of that original zero position. This is the featured snippet. And what I'm still seeing is just Google has to decide, am I going to show a featured snippet for this or not? It's typically for informational searches or people looking for very specific answers. And it's both in how you write it, and then someone in the comment just posted the correct answer too, and the schema you put on the page. So you can format the content where if you know there's a very common search, you write probably an H2 or some kind of heading that's very clearly targeting that search, and then immediately answer that directly. And if you know those are the kind of searches people are making and Google prefers to show featured snippets for them, give them that very easy to grab snippet that is quotable, it's direct and to the point. Here's the question, here's the answer. You can see here it loves bulleted lists. It loves very well-structured articles for these sort of things. And then also if you can do schema, FAQ schema was one we were using a lot. Google's not really using FAQ schema the same way it was, but I don't think there's any harm to adding it to your site. We do see some indication that Google will use schema that it doesn't officially endorse as a ranking factor, sort of as a way of sneaking some keywords into the page, given that the schema should just have content that would have been in the site too. Like you can't just keyword stuff it. You have to actually reflect content that's on the site. But when it's in the schema, they're much better at parsing it and putting it into its understanding of the content.
Yeah, and I'll add something to that truly, when you think about user experience and when you think about like your actual website and kind of above the fold content and how to get someone to engage and interact and convert off of it, that listings and the way you answer questions and how you kind of organize that above the fold, it's really impactful. It matters, right? The giant paragraphs, who really reads super long paragraph related text? I think people want to find what they're looking for quickly. They want the right answer. They want some trustworthy factors, and then they can engage and contact and buy, right? That stuff matters not only to, the robot and the search and the crawl, but it also matters just to the end user as far as conversion. And that's really what it's all about. Who needs tons of traffic that doesn't convert? You're really looking for things that ultimately are going to be beneficial for the person that's looking to buy from you. So there's kind of a two-pronged approach that works when it comes to that. It's not just for the robot. It's not just for the crawl. It also is for the conversion. It's why UX is so important besides just rank.
Yeah, I had a client the other day where they were doing a site migration. We helped them rebuild their website. Actually, it was a WordPress site too. And they had this content that was ranking really well, but it was very irrelevant to their business. It was actually like a throwaway thing they did for like a holiday, but it happened to rank really well for like, is Guinness good for you? And it had nothing to do with their business. It was a St. Patrick's Day thing. So they were afraid of removing it because they're like, well, if we remove it, we're not going to get as much traffic. But then I went into analytics. I said, guys, this has never made you a single dollar. This content has never led to any business for you. So you can keep it if you would like to just keep your graph looking good, but you could get rid of it. Your total traffic will look lower, but your conversion rate will be better. Because if it's irrelevant traffic, then what do you care? So it's understanding what really matters to your success, what are your true conversions, and do you have content that can get people there?
Yeah. Are you speaking your customer's language? Are you reaching the people who will actually benefit from the services you provide? I think that's a really good place to start. Because in a sense, organic traffic is a vanity metric if you're only worried about keeping the numbers up. There's a second layer there that matters around conversion and attribution that
Yeah.
I don't think probably people on this webinar are familiar with what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. There's times where you might just want traffic that doesn't convert if it is somewhat relevant, because then it gets you into other marketing funnels. Like you can retarget them now, you can run meta ads or something against them now that they've been to your site. But if it's truly irrelevant traffic, a user who's never going to convert, then you got better places to spend your time and money.
Yeah, and we had spoken to this a little bit earlier in the presentation about suggested search and the way that Google's kind of evolving to be able to show what other people had been looking for. I think we've all experienced this in the last few years as far as when we've started to do searches for things and look for things. We do this for our clients also, but it's a great way to piggyback ideas and content when we're talking about rich snippets and we were talking about bullet points and ways to kind of engage and think about what people are looking for in your industry. So use this as a tool to be able to do some research on the different keywords that are getting decent volume and high volume as far as going down this funnel. So it's just a tactic if you want to be able to think about a content strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Wanted to give a reminder, we're coming up toward the top of the hour. We've got a lot of questions from our audience, and I did want to also remind that we'll be sharing the webinar recording over email post-event. So if you would like to pass this along to members of your team, if you're tuning in later, we'll have that for you following the event. So I want to let you, Kurt and Matt, kind of touch on anything here you want to, and then we'll turn it over to the audience for Q&A.
Great.
Sure. I want to speed run a few of these slides. I think I'm just going to run through these next ones. I made this little deck here. This is the one we were saying, like, why is Reddit getting pulled up so much? I think it's just experience. Like, it's firsthand experience. I'm seeing Quora and Reddit, for whatever reason, Quora gets pulled in there too, but Google now has discussions in forums as a special call out. And it's also generating things like these buying guides where it's almost a super specialized version of the featured snippet. And people also ask, not quite AI generated, but it's pulling specific topics around a product and then sticking them right in the search results. We're also seeing if you have any kind of shopping intent, Google gives you a shopping experience that almost looks like an e-commerce platform where you have all the facets and filters on the side. And if you look up a certain kind of product, Google won't just show you the products, it will show you brands it associates with those products. And this last one here is the idea that Google can watch your YouTube videos, build its own like it will timestamp them, it will know what you're talking about at different points in the video, and then pull those into search results. So just to show how search has gone to be so many kinds of experiences, and Google will pull from so many places. So if you know people are looking for a how-to video as their main intention, and you don't have a how-to video, you should probably get one. And then there's ways you can optimize the video so that Google will grab out the section of that is most relevant to the search. And even right in the search result, pop open that video and start playing from there. I'll quickly touch on the idea of the knowledge graph. I spoke about this a few other times. This is to know that Google isn't just ranking keywords anymore. It's trying to understand how everything connects together. So really the takeaway here is have good schema on your website, have good structure to your website that connects, say, authors to pages, pages to topics. And you have to think about, someone in the chat was asking about Wikipedia. Wikipedia is one of the main sources Google pulls to build a knowledge graph, but not the only one. If you can get a Wikipedia page and keep it up to date and accurate, that will help. But it's often hard to be considered noteworthy enough to get a Wikipedia page. So if you get one, good job, but it's hard to get.
True, very true.
Okay. I think we'll end on these little last few slides and we get to the questions if we have time. So the question's always going to come up about AI. We've been talking about it a little bit. The thing will be, you can use it if you are going to review it with human eyes and it actually makes sense to use. If you're just saying, hey, AI, generate me some SEO content, it will pretend to do that. It will give you something you might think would do that if you don't know better, but it isn't good. So where we're seeing it is using it to augment or help you do something, but not to just do it all. You need someone with human experience to fact check it, confirm it's good. Maybe you're just not a good writer and you have to get your thoughts out, and then you can have AI clean up your writing just almost as a fancy spell check,
Mhm.
but you don't want it to generate the content at this point.
Yeah, AI is a good friend to help you generate an outline or ideate on a topic that maybe you need some help getting ideas for. But 100% you're ultimately going to want a human copy editor
Yep.
and provide your original thoughts and expertise, because don't forget, like that's what is going to rank, more so than anything that AI will generate. So don't forget that.
Yes.
Think, yeah, Matt, a lot of questions from the panel, or sorry, from the webinar attendees on thoughts on AI. What
Yeah.
about search generative experience? That was another one that came up a couple of times. Do you want to touch on
So
that?
I'll touch on that. I got a new Pixel phone. Where is it? Right here. Whoop. I got the new Pixel 8. They build in all that Gemini stuff into it. And my experience is mixed. I don't think Google's convinced people really want AI for everything. And what I'm seeing is Google will or won't show the SGE because it's trying to not show it when it doesn't think you're going to want that experience. So far, it's basically another version of the featured snippet or the rich result. And if you look here on my example I screenshotted, you got the SGE at the top. Below it is a featured snippet. And the source for the SGE content is the same source as the featured snippet. So there isn't a special way to optimize towards the Gemini rankings because it's just going to pull data from the same places anything would come from. So we're seeing normal SEO that would get you ranking at the top of the page or being pulled for featured snippets. Also is probably going to get you into the SGE, but I think Google has a problem with SGE in that it's very expensive to generate, like the computational power it takes to do costs them money, and it's taking up a spot where they could run ads. So they don't really have, like, it costs them more money. It doesn't make them more money yet. So they're having to figure out how much do users really want this and how much do we need to use it to keep users on our platform. But I don't think they want to go overboard with generating it. So I think we can start the questions. I also have this takeaway slide up here. It just recaps a lot of what we're talking about. But I would say the main thing is focus on your user intent. Think of your audience and what's going to benefit them. If you're going to use AI, you only use it because it makes sense to help you expand on what you're doing or streamline your process, but don't think you can just add an AI chatbot to your site and suddenly all your SEO problems are solved. And gaining this understanding that Google's going to change the search results for so many users that you need to think about what's the experience they're going to get, and do you have the content in the right places to even be shown for those.
Yeah, take a screenshot of this slide and you have a roadmap for the next year. These are great takeaways, great things to keep in mind if you're not already doing these things. We got a ton of questions from the audience. I'm trying to comb through and choose ones that are going to be applicable to more than maybe one or two people on the call. Lexi, feel free to chime in if there were any that you really liked. Looking at the list, one that I had at the top was, what's something actionable to take away today and apply that will have a direct impact on my SEO? I think that key takeaways slide was a really good place to point you to.
My main takeaway would be to add schema to your site if you don't already have it. There are ones Google officially tells you to use, like product schema, reviews, articles. But there's other ones you could add too. They aren't official. Like Google doesn't have a document saying we are going to use this for rich results. But we're still seeing benefits to doing that, where maybe you didn't have a knowledge panel before. You start adding author schema to the author pages. You're adding organization schema to your site. And we're seeing Google take that in and start to expand out its knowledge panels for businesses. And that's the direction they're going, because that's data that AI systems like theirs can really digest. They're not having to guess what who's this? What do they do? What are their websites? You strictly label it. It comes in pre-formatted, and then Google can use it. If you're using a WordPress site, you can use, like, WooCommerce will generate your product schema, just making sure you got all the data in there you need for it to be valid schema. So making sure you have prices and reviews if possible, prices for sure. And the other part would be if you have like a one-off schema, you're not sure where to add, I'd recommend use Tag Manager. You can use Google Tag Manager to inject schema onto any single page. That way you don't have to get into how the CMS works. You can go around that and use Tag Manager for those ones.
I'd say offsite play in all their products. Make sure that you're there and represented in all of the different areas, as far as if you're looking to optimize and do what Google is ultimately looking for. Off your site, make sure you're represented and you're optimized in any of their different products. It just adds to the credibility of the site, and a lot of the things is around like domain authority and who you compete against. So make sure you're doing that, make sure you're participating in that and putting some effort into it.
Love that. Kind of a curveball question, but I think you'll be able to speak to it, Matt. Do you think Google will stay the leader of search, and do you use any others?
I think Google's gonna stay. Like, I know Bing has made a little bit of gain. We have things like DuckDuckGo and other ones that are getting some attention because they're, say, better for privacy. I mean, Google is certainly the most invasive of your privacy right now because they have so many ways of tracking you. I don't see Google going away. When I look at the stats on all my clients, it's overwhelmingly Google.
Yep.
I think they would have to make a big, there'd have to be some big problem that I cannot predict that's above my pay grade for them to not maintain their position in search. They're having to take a lot of steps towards adapting to privacy laws getting stricter. I believe in Europe, they have to deal with the issue that they can't seem to be favoring one business over another in an anti-competitive way. So we think in Europe, they're going to start to feature third-party review websites higher. So like before, if you looked up a service like a plumbing near me, they would show plumbers near you. And now I think they're going to show Yelp and Angie's List type websites that are doing the curation for them, because then Google won't say, we didn't pick a single plumber for this result. We just picked other sites that can tell you about plumbers. So they're having to adapt to privacy laws, but it's going to be really hard to dethrone Google as a search engine. Yeah. In the comments, we got someone saying it would take like antitrust, brain drain, bureaucracy, censorship. Those would be the kind of things that would do it. I think they're fighting to adapt to all those things. Like, I think this is why GA4 was rolled out pretty aggressively, is the old UA that we all knew and loved just wasn't going to survive modern privacy laws. So they had to rebuild analytics around that.
Oh yeah, RIP UA. Maybe another upcoming webinar on Google 360.
I'll date myself and say I remember when Google bought Urchin, which was the predecessor of what Google Analytics was built on. So they rebranded it as Universal Analytics, but it was originally Urchin Analytics, and they just didn't think the name Urchin was very good.
We are at the top of the hour. What a great audience. So many amazing questions and great insights from you, Matt and Kurt. Thank you to our panelists for being here and providing your expertise. I will hand it back over to Lexi to kind of close us out. And if there are any closing remarks from you, Matt or Kurt, please go right ahead.
I see there's, a lot of questions we couldn't get to in the chat. If you want to look us up on LinkedIn, I'm happy to try to answer questions. One just came in. I wish I had time to answer about a university. I'm actually working with some universities right now. They're in a unique spot for SEO because they don't exactly sell a product, but they still need people to come and sign up. So that's something I'm actually working on day to day right now, is helping some universities with their SEO.
Amazing. I'm going to jump in there and just say thank you to Matt, Kurt, Aaron for being here today. I seriously, I say this after every webinar, but I think we could continue to talk about this for hours on end, but we took up 60 minutes of y'all's time. So thank you from WP Engine and thank you from the whole audience. And then as a follow-up, we will send out the recording to everyone. And we'll also try and get a question and answer document thrown together to go over these helpful questions. But lots to come, and maybe we need to do another one of these in like 6 months because everything will have changed by then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks.